Well, for the first time in many weeks, Dalton trustees and Mayor Tiffany Henyard held a public meeting together, but not at Village Hall.
And Micah, tonight was a special board meeting because business has not gotten done at two previous meetings. So that's some progress there, but this meeting was not without its fair.
Tiffany Henyard, the so-called super mayor of Dalton, Illinois, has become the center of a scandal that seems tailor-made for a reality TV show. Her tenure as mayor has been a whirlwind of controversy, financial mismanagement, and allegations that have reached the level of FBI investigation. Henyard, elected in 2021, promised to clean up the small town and usher in an era of reform and transparency. However, what followed has been a tale of corruption, petulant rivalries, and fiscal disaster, leaving Dalton residents and officials reeling. When Henyard first took office, she presented herself as a tough, no-nonsense leader who was determined to turn Dalton around. The town had long suffered from underfunded schools, crumbling infrastructure, and a lack of effective leadership. Henyard's promises were met with hope, but soon the reality of her leadership began to surface. Instead of revitalizing the town, she quickly led it into financial turmoil. In 2024, the Dalton Board of Trustees, alarmed by the rapid deterioration of the town's finances, enlisted former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot to conduct an investigation into Henyard's handling of public funds. The findings of the investigation were nothing short of shocking. According to the report, Dalton's general fund balance, which had been a healthy $5 million in 2022, had plummeted to a staggering deficit of nearly $7 million by 2024. The investigation revealed that taxpayer money that was supposed to be used for essential services and community projects was being spent recklessly. Henyard's spending habits were described as extravagant and irresponsible, with funds used for lavish vacations, stays in high-end hotels, and extensive shopping sprees, all at the town's expense. The community that had hoped for reform was now watching in disbelief as their hard-earned tax dollars were frittered away. Adding to the financial disaster was the issue of unpaid vendors. The town racked up millions of dollars in outstanding payments, with checks reportedly printed but never mailed. Local businesses that had once trusted Dalton to fulfill its contractual obligations were now left in financial limbo. Some of these vendors, unable to pay their bills, were forced to close their doors. This situation severely strained Dalton's relationship with local businesses and deepened the growing sense of mistrust between the community and its leadership. The growing financial disaster was compounded by another troubling revelation: excessive overtime pay within the Dalton Police Department. It was discovered that certain officers were receiving outrageously large overtime payments. One officer, who earned a little more than $80,000 annually, received $14,800 in overtime. Another officer, who made just $3,515, received $127,000 in overtime pay. Critics speculated that these officers, rather than serving the community, were tasked with providing personal security for Henyard, shielding her from the mounting public backlash. This fueled accusations of corruption and misuse of power, further eroding the community's trust in their mayor. As these revelations came to light, the fallout was swift and severe. Dalton residents, already frustrated by the state of the town's infrastructure and public services, were now demanding accountability. Town hall meetings became a forum for public outcry, with citizens calling for Henyard's resignation and urging the Board of Trustees to take action to restore financial stability and transparency. Despite the mounting pressure, Henyard remained defiant. She refused to step down, dismissing her critics as political adversaries intent on sabotaging her progress. In a Facebook Live session, Henyard compared her struggles to those of historical civil rights leaders, claiming that opponents did not want to see a strong black woman in power. This defiant attitude only served to alienate more residents, who felt she was more concerned with consolidating power than addressing the town's pressing issues. The situation took an even more bizarre turn when reports surfaced that Henyard had spent tens of thousands of dollars using the town's credit cards. One of the most startling charges was a $43,000 spending spree on Amazon in a single day. Other questionable purchases were made from retailers like Wayfair and Walgreens, yet no receipts were provided, raising serious concerns about the legitimacy of these expenditures. Henyard's response was to bring criminal defense lawyers to village board meetings, and to change the locks on Village Hall several times, effectively locking out the trustees from accessing vital government spaces. This obstructionist behavior led to a standoff between Henyard and the board, with trustees like Chris Gonzalez and Carmen Carlisle accusing her of financial mismanagement, lack of transparency, and undermining democracy itself. The trustees, locked out of their offices, found it nearly impossible to perform their duties, while Henyard continued to control the narrative. Instead of addressing the mounting criticisms, she framed them as political attacks designed to undermine her administration. But to the residents of Dalton, Henyard's actions appeared to be more focused on shielding herself from scrutiny than solving the town's problems. The financial mismanagement continued to unravel as further investigations revealed even more egregious spending. Henyard's once promising administration had become a cautionary tale in small-town politics. Her critics painted her as a leader more interested in maintaining power and indulging in personal luxuries than in fulfilling her campaign promises to restore Dalton's finances, and the situation only worsened when a report by Lori Lightfoot's team revealed that the village's general fund had dropped from a $5 million surplus to a $7 million deficit during Henyard's tenure. The report suggested that funds meant for community projects were being diverted for personal use, and residents began to question how much longer Henyard could continue to govern under such scrutiny. Adding to the drama, Henyard was facing legal challenges on multiple fronts, including an eviction lawsuit from her landlord. Henyard, who was living in a home she had leased, had not paid her rent since August. Despite making a six-figure salary as both the mayor of Dalton and supervisor of Thorn Township, nearly $300,000 annually, Henyard had failed to cover her rent, raising more questions about her financial decisions. The landlord, who had been trying to collect rent for months, eventually filed for eviction, citing Henyard's refusal to pay. This new legal issue only added to the growing public outcry against her. Dalton residents were left asking why Henyard, who made so much money, was dodging her rent payments while overseeing the financial collapse of their town. In the midst of all this, Henyard continued to deflect criticism, often lashing out at those who questioned her. During one public meeting, she accused fellow trustees, who were also black, of betraying her because she was a black woman in power. She claimed that they were grandstanding and undermining her efforts to lead the town. Her comments were seen by many as an attempt to shift the focus away from her failures and onto issues of race, using her identity to deflect from the real concerns of Dalton residents. As the scandal continued to unfold, the residents of Dalton were left to deal with the aftermath. The town's financial health was in shambles, with millions in debt, unpaid vendors, and crumbling infrastructure. Schools were underfunded, and essential services were in jeopardy. Residents like Andrea Mai expressed their devastation, noting that senior citizens in the town were struggling to afford basic necessities, while their tax dollars were being squandered. The situation in Dalton had become a tragic scenario, one that showed no signs of improving as Henyard's leadership grew more erratic and controversial. The FBI investigation into Dalton's finances seemed to be gaining momentum, and many were left wondering how much longer Henyard could hold on to power amid mounting legal challenges and public outrage. In the end, Henyard's tenure as mayor has become a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the consequences of putting personal interests above the well-being of the community. Her story is one of broken promises, mismanagement, and scandal, leaving Dalton in a precarious position and its residents searching for a leader who can restore faith in their government. Whether Henyard will face the consequences of her actions remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: Dalton's turbulent journey under her leadership is far from over.
We'll be seeking arrest for individuals involved. I will be pressing charges.
Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor of Dalton, Illinois, has found herself at the center of yet another controversy, this time involving her rental property. Henyard and her partner, Kamal Woods, have reportedly changed the locks on their rental home, preventing their landlord, Janetta Hull, from gaining access. This move is just the latest in a growing list of scandals surrounding Henyard's leadership. The trouble began when Hull confronted Woods about unpaid rent, including a modest $200 increase to cover outstanding dues. Woods allegedly responded by claiming he couldn't afford the additional cost. This has left many residents baffled, especially considering that Henyard and Woods are both reportedly earning over $300,000 annually. Despite this, they have reportedly failed to meet their rental obligations, prompting Hull to initiate eviction proceedings. However, serving Henyard with eviction papers has proven difficult, further complicating the situation. While Henyard has denied any personal financial wrongdoing, her leadership of Dalton has been plagued with allegations of mismanagement and fiscal irresponsibility. Rather than addressing these concerns head-on, Henyard has attempted to shift the narrative, accusing her political opponents of conspiring against her. In a dramatic 90-minute Facebook Live session, she threatened to seek the arrest of her critics, though she provided no concrete evidence or legal basis for her claims. Her broadcast, filled with vague promises to press charges, showcased her defiance in the face of growing opposition, but critics argue it was just another attempt to divert attention from her own failures. As the financial crisis in Dalton deepens, residents have grown increasingly frustrated with Henyard's leadership. At town meetings, they regularly demand answers about the town's deteriorating financial condition and her questionable spending practices. Under her watch, Dalton's once thriving general fund has fallen into deficit, with allegations that taxpayer money is being used for personal luxuries rather than essential public services. Crumbling infrastructure, unpaid vendors, and reduced municipal services have only exacerbated the sense that the town is in disarray. Despite these mounting issues, Henyard has shown no signs of stepping down. In fact, she has already announced her intention to seek re-election in 2025, a move that has left many in the community incredulous and outraged. During a recent board meeting, one frustrated resident directly asked, "Why won't you step down?" a question that reflects the broader sentiment in Dalton. Henyard, however, remains steadfast in her belief that she can retain power, even portraying herself as a victim of political sabotage rather than a leader at the center of controversy. Her confidence, despite the town's worsening financial outlook and her personal legal troubles, has become a point of contention. Many critics suggest that her insistence on running for re-election may be driven by a desire to protect herself from potential legal consequences. Henyard's administration has already faced scrutiny from state agencies, watchdog groups, and even the FBI, which is reportedly investigating the town's financial discrepancies. Meanwhile, her strained relationship with the village board continues to escalate. Trustees like Chris Gonzalez and Carmen Carlisle have been vocal in their criticism, accusing Henyard of bypassing board approvals and operating without transparency or accountability. Board meetings have become increasingly contentious, with heated exchanges and procedural disruptions. Both sides accuse each other of undermining the democratic process, and Henyard's resistance to accountability only fuels the growing tensions.
Clown! We will continue to speak out against wrongdoing. Why won't you step down?
Tiffany Henyard has built her political career on bold moves and even bolder rhetoric, and despite the mounting controversies, she remains confident. Her latest move is a controversial salary plan that would slash her pay by nearly 90% if she loses re-election, but keep her salary unchanged if re-elected. This classically power-driven tactic is seen by some as a way to deter challengers from running against her. While the move may seem desperate, it could actually work in her favor by making a re-election bid less appealing to potential rivals. However, Dalton's problems continue to escalate under Henyard's leadership. The town is grappling with a water crisis, marked by frequent water main breaks, which Henyard attributes to budget cuts. Residents are growing frustrated, not only with the town's deteriorating infrastructure, but also with the lack of police presence in their neighborhoods. While many acknowledge that Dalton's police force is doing its job, there is widespread concern over Henyard's personal security detail, which some feel is prioritized over protecting the residents. One community member, Brittany Norwood, expressed frustration, saying, "You're assigning all of them to be with you when they should be out here protecting the residents." The frustration isn't confined to Dalton's residents. Henyard's colleagues on the village board are equally upset. Several have taken legal action against her, accusing her of forging checks and withholding financial records. Trustee Jason House, who is running against Henyard in the next election, has become one of her most vocal critics. He is part of a group of trustees known as the Clean House Team, which is determined to unseat Henyard and restore order to the town. Despite the growing criticism and legal challenges, Henyard shows no signs of stepping down. She has made it clear that she's in this for the long haul, even comparing herself to former President Donald Trump, claiming she'll win re-election in a landslide, just like he did. This bold comparison suggests that Henyard sees herself as a political outsider fighting against the establishment, although whether that's true remains up for debate as Dalton's financial situation continues to spiral. Henyard's leadership is under intense scrutiny. The FBI is investigating the town's financial discrepancies, and the upcoming election will determine if Henyard's tenure as super mayor is coming to an end. Meanwhile, her landlord is still waiting for that overdue rent check, and residents of Dalton continue to demand answers. The next chapter in this dramatic saga will unfold in the coming months, and it's clear that Henyard's time in office is far from over, at least not without a fight. Residents and political observers alike are keeping a close eye on Henyard's re-election campaign as the situation continues to develop. Will Henyard manage to retain power, or will the mounting scandals finally catch up with her? Only time will tell, but the battle for Dalton is far from over.